Hi, I'm meteorologist Alexandra Cranford getting you an update on Tropical Storm Ian on Sunday at 4 p.m. This is your 4 p.m. update on September 25th. As far as what's happened with Ian so far today, not that much has really gone on. The center jumped a little bit to the north. It's actually weakened officially with maximum sustained winds at 45 miles per hour, gusting up to about 60 miles per hour. So this is very similar to what we were seeing actually most of the day on Saturday. Now its location, of course, has changed a bit, 220 miles south-southeast of Grand Cayman. And we'll get into some of the slight shifts in the path and so forth in just a minute. It's actually been adjusted a little bit farther to the east as opposed to west like we were talking about yesterday. But we'll get into that in a second. I just wanted to show you really quickly part of maybe why this hasn't developed. It really wasn't expected to start strengthening a lot until late Sunday night and especially during the day on Monday. Part of that is because its low pressure center is still tilted. It's not very well defined. It doesn't have an inner core right now that it's really able to, tap into everything as far as the conducive environment with the warm water and low wind shear. And it really hasn't strengthened all that much, and in fact went down in intensity officially today. And this might be another culprit, of course, the dry air. And I was pointing this out earlier in the week that it would have some of this dry air in the northwestern Caribbean, and it's moving right into a pretty decent spot for some dry air in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. We know that models don't tend to solve with dry air very well. Sometimes systems can remain weak even though the models are going much stronger. So just a little something to note for today. It did not strengthen quite as much as forecast because partially of that dry air. So it'll be interesting to see how much that dry air plays into the forecast going ahead. Now, I do think it's still going to strengthen. I don't think this will completely fizzle, but it has the warm waters as well as the low wind shear environment over the next couple of days, along with the dry air. So that's why we're thinking it'll still strengthen. Let's get into the track really quickly from the National Hurricane Center. This came out at 4 p.m. of course. Note that the movement is now west-northwest. One more point there. It's starting that turn, it looks like, off to the northwest and then to the north. So we are expecting that because of the steering pattern, which I'll show you in a second. But it does appear that that is beginning as early as this afternoon, and tonight we should see it continue more toward the northwest eventually tomorrow, and then eventually north and northeast. It does look like it will strengthen and might be a hurricane, maybe even Category 2 and possibly a major hurricane when it hits the western coast of Cuba. And it looks like that will be happening sometime on Tuesday, perhaps very early in the morning, and perhaps on toward the afternoon. It will still be bringing potentially hurricane conditions there. So lots of rain, high winds, and surge for western Cuba, particularly from Monday night into Tuesday. Then National Hurricane Center still has it as a Cat 4 on Wednesday, but it does look like there will be increasing southwesterly wind shear as we move into Thursday and Friday. So this could be a good thing for folks along the Florida coast. It may weaken it a bit as it approaches the coast. Now, by this point, it will also be a bigger storm, though. It will have had the chance to grow when it was farther south, and also it may also slow down a little bit. You may notice that the timing's a bit different. For Thursday afternoon, now it's looking like it might still be off the coast and potentially late Thursday and into Friday be making its way somewhere on this western coast of Florida. So if you're in Florida watching this, certainly all the way from the Panhandle to about Fort Myers and other spots even farther south, of course, keep an eye on it and just kind of have your plan ready to go. A lot will probably, not a lot will change, but some will change with the exact forecast. Now, for those of us in Louisiana and Mississippi, where our Channel 4 viewing area is, of course, the track has actually shifted a little farther away from us, off to the east. Yesterday, as I said, the trend was westerly with the forecast path. Today, it's much more, well, not much more, but it is a little more off to the east. So as I said when I started, not that much has significantly changed. Still looking like a storm that will be impacting Florida as a hurricane with some serious impacts, including surge, heavy rain, high winds, and so forth. But still, actually, for Louisiana and Mississippi, looking like this is going to be something that does not bring us any really significant impacts. We'll still watch it. There still could be some slight changes in the track. Of course, we will keep our eye on it and track it closely over the coming days. But at this point, Still no significant impacts expected for Louisiana and Mississippi, and the track has actually shifted a little bit off to the east. And we were talking about the models yesterday. The GFS model was the one yesterday that was sneaking off a little closer to the west, to Mississippi, to Louisiana. Never actually brought it there, but it was just going that way. Today, it's more in line off to the east. And so that's something interesting because the European model, which has been doing a pretty solid job so far, it's been the more consistent one, still has the edge of the envelope off to the farther east. So kind of interesting to see the GFS coming more in line with that, and the European and the UK Met, another good model, holding strong on the eastern side of the model guidance. So we will see. It's possible it could keep trending off to the east, which for New Orleans and our Mississippi coastal spots and even our Louisiana coastal spots, of course, that would put it farther from us. So again, we'll be watching this. This is the steering pattern, still thinking with the trough, drawing it off to the north, the big high off to the east, guiding it off to the north, and then as we move through the week, you can see what happens. This is potentially by Thursday. I'm liking this big high over here too, building in over in the west, and then you can see the trough kind of lifts away, and Ian continues its curve off to the north and northeast, and this takes us into Friday. That will be likely the trend with some of the most significant impacts, I think, for the Florida coast. Wherever along that cone of uncertainty spot it does end up making landfall, the most probably significant days would be Thursday and Friday as this continues moving inland then. There are some new tropical storm and hurricane warnings and watches out. You can see for portions of Cuba, there are hurricane warnings now. Of course, that western tip where it might be a category 2 or 3 or, a stronger hurricane than just a tropical storm by that point. You can see the oranges are tropical storm warnings and the pinks are tropical storm watches. And note Key West, the Florida Keys are now focused with the tropical storm watch. So that means that conditions could happen there as we get into the next couple of days. Rainfall potential still looking quite high, really from about the same spot around the Florida Panhandle, around Gulf Shores, and especially eastward into, of course, much of the state of Florida. Those oranges and yellows you see are up to about 4 to 7 inches plus. So certainly the rainfall potential will be something that we'll have to watch for you in Florida. Note though, New Orleans not looking at a whole lot of rain, and that's because, of course, with this system, as this will be the low pressure area off to the east of us, we're going to have a front move through. The trough that we were talking about will push it through, and then we'll have high pressure building. So actually, aside from a strong wind, likely on Wednesday, Thursday, and maybe even Friday, a north wind for Louisiana and Mississippi. Aside from that, we're not really looking at any impacts, especially for land areas. There may be some big swells off of our coastline in the Gulf waters, but that's really mainly it for Louisiana and Mississippi. We'll update you if that changes. If the track does shift back our way, we will see, what those changes might include. But at this point, still looking like zero impacts for most of our land areas, except for that breezy, windy kind of setup. And actually, it will be a lovely feel. I think we'll have dry air, low humidity, lots of sunshine for much of the upcoming week, thanks to that cool front and that high pressure coming in and reinforcing that. Out in the Atlantic, we also have Tropical Storm Gaston, and there's one other wave with a 30% chance of development, pretty low chance. That one's drifting to the north, not heading toward the Caribbean at this point or toward the Gulf of Mexico. So that one hopefully just kind of staying out at sea and probably weakening. Gaston is also weakening a lot too. And we've done with the other storms at this point. So right now our focus is on Ian. We'll have more updates coming. This was just your quick update here on Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m. We'll have more coming up for you through the week.